Good afternoon and welcome to your 4 to 5. I'm Maddie Gardner here with Eric Chilton, Taheshah Moise, and Christian Morgan on this very special election day.
This is an interactive show built to connect you with the community and with us. So be sure to join our conversation as we live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Yeah, put your seatbelts on, folks. Here we go. Don't forget to use that hashtag 4 to 5 to stay connected to us.
Well, let's jump right in. The countdown is on until the polls close tonight. Of course, tonight all eyes are going to be on the race for president of the United States. But that is not the only important election in North Carolina. Governor Roy Cooper and Dan Forest are going head to head in the race for governor, and the U.S. Senate race in our state is one to watch as well, as challenger Cal Cunningham takes on current Senator Tom Tillis. Of course, we are keeping a close eye on all of the important races, and we'll have team coverage throughout the night on air and on all of our digital platforms. While we do not know who will end up winning those races tonight, we do know the results in our state are going to come in a little bit later. The State Board of Elections is extending voting hours at 4 polling places, including at Blueford Academy in Greensboro, because of delays in opening this morning. Now, because of that extension, results will not be posted by the State Board of Elections until 8:15 tonight.
All right, one of the results, of course, that North Carolinians will be watching very closely, that is the race for U.S. Senate, Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis. This is going to be a very close race by all indication now. WFMY News 2's Alma McCarty shows us the latest from the Cal Cunningham campaign.
Candidate for U.S. Senate Cal Cunningham has spent the last 12 or so days campaigning all over the state. He tells me visiting 57 sites like this precinct here in Colfax. He's kept a pretty low profile following an alleged scandal, which he later apologized for, but we did catch up with him briefly this afternoon. It's been a hard-fought race against the Republican senator incumbent Tom Tillis. The two have spent hundreds of millions of dollars, according to political advertising experts. Cunningham asserts that he's in this for North Carolinians, that he's willing to go to work for everyone in the state on day one. He's criticized Tillis, arguing the Republican senator isn't a good representative of the people and that he didn't do enough to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. I asked him if, in hindsight, he'd change anything about his campaign.
Look, I think we've run a strong campaign. We've worked to reach out all over North Carolina, connecting with voters in every corner of this state. We've particularly been focused on health care, defeating this pandemic, getting folks back to work. We know Washington's got an important role to play, and I think we're going to show well this evening.
We'll be heading to Raleigh to cover the results of this particular race, with the polls closing in just a few hours. For now, in Colfax, Alma McCarty, WFMY News 2.
Alma, thank you. Now let's turn to the U.S. Senate race. Who will represent North Carolina? Incumbent Senator Tom Tillis or his Democratic opponent, Cal Cunningham? WFMY News 2's Jess Winters joins us from Tillis's election night watch party.
U.S. Senator Tom Tillis holding his election night watch party in Mooresville. He's seeking his second term, and in the home stretch, it's been a very close race. With the exception of when he was diagnosed with COVID-19, Tillis has been here, there, and everywhere on the campaign trail, showing face, getting loud, and making it a point to say that his opponent is doing quite the opposite, saying Cal Cunningham has been in hiding ever since his cheating scandal surfaced, an extramarital affair Cunningham admitted to a month ago. Ever since then, Tillis has been on the offense, attacking his opponent's integrity and gaining traction in the polls. The two at a dead heat statistical tie at times. This afternoon, polls still showing Cunningham as a slight lead, but you also have to account for the margin of error. I spoke with Tillis about the numbers. He says he's confident, not concerned. He says Democrats usually show up in full force during early voting, but he's confident that the Republicans will show up in full force today on Election Day and will pull them to victory just like they did 6 years ago. His election night watch party kicks off at 7:30. We will keep you updated.
Jess, thank you. North Carolina is a key race, a key state in the race for president, so much so that with just hours to go, the son of President Donald Trump and Joe Biden both made time to sit down and talk with WFMY News 2's Ben Briscoe one-on-one.
So both campaigns had the same message for you today. It's probably what you think. Vote. You've got until 7:30 to get in line, so I asked them to try to both give you their best quick moment to convince you. Down to the wire here, give us your final 10-second push for the voters on why they should pick your side.
Guys, vote for results. Vote for the guy that gets things done, not for the guy that's been talking about it for 47 years. We have plenty of politicians that are all talk and no action. You have an anomaly. You have something rare right now with a president that is willing to fight the establishment, who's willing to fight the special interest, who isn't owned and beholden by the special interest and corrupt foreign governments, unlike the Bidens. You'll never hear about those things because big tech, social media, mainstream media is in the pocket of the Democrats. But think about the results and the accomplishment that this president has and go vote accordingly.
Number one, I'm going to eliminate COVID. I have a plan. I'm going to beat COVID. I'm not closing the environment. Number two, I will protect your health care in the midst of this crisis. Number three, I'm going to make sure that we make things in America. We're going to make sure that there's not a single contract led by the federal government that isn't to a company that has every single product they use a made in America product. It is estimated by Moody's on Wall Street that I will create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than the president could create, and grow the economy by $1 trillion. We have such enormous opportunities to move this country forward.
Guys, you still got time to make it out to the polls, and while you're there, you can actually watch the full interviews online on your phone on our YouTube page. Just search for WFMY News 2. Also, click over to those fact checks we have done on all the candidates this entire election cycle.
Another key race for North Carolina voters is the race for our governor. We are covering both candidates. Tonight, I'll be live in Selma, just east of Raleigh, to cover Dan Forest's campaign event, while our very own Kevin Kennedy will be with Governor Roy Cooper tonight. Let's check in with Kevin right now with the latest on this race.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a historic night on a national level, and certainly, as you mentioned, on a state level when it comes for the race for the governor's mansion. The race for the governor's mansion is going to look a lot different this year than it did 4 years ago, certainly on a number of perspectives. Look at this right now. The North Carolina Democratic headquarters are outside right now. All the events are being held outside. There's no big monitors. Obviously, the concern with COVID-19 and social distancing. As for the election itself, well, Governor Cooper won this election 4 years ago by the slimmest of margins, 0.02%, about 10,000 votes out of about 4.5 million votes cast. His competitor this year is Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest, a businessman. The two men certainly differ on a number of issues, including Medicaid expansion, educational funding, and then the big difference being COVID-19 and how the governor handled this versus how Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest would have handled this. Now, Governor Cooper basing his on science. Lieutenant Governor really wanted to kind of get the schools open a lot quicker and then businesses open a lot quicker as well. Forrest did have the backing of Reopen the NC Group. However, polls are showing right now that the Governor Cooper has a sizable lead right now. We're going to be out here all night. We'll follow the very latest, have updates for you at 5 and 6, and then when Governor Cooper arrives, we'll obviously hear from him. We're live in downtown Raleigh. I'm Kevin Kennedy, WFMY News 2.
Kevin, thank you. If you still need help getting to the polls before they close, you do have a few options to choose from. The Greensboro Transit Authority is offering free rides to the polls, and both Lyft and Uber are offering discounts to get more people to vote today. Lyft is offering half off a ride up to $10 to any polling place or drop box. Just use the code 2020VOTE. Uber is offering half off round trip rides to and from polling locations up to $14.
Let's take a look now at your 4 to 5 roundup, and happening right now, a march to the polls in Alamance County. You are taking a live picture at the event right now. Activist and Reverend Greg Drumright organized another push to get people out to vote in Graham. This after marchers and law enforcement clashed over the weekend in that very city. Organizers are calling today's event a peaceful push to the polls, and you can see a crowd out there right now in Graham. We will have more on this story coming up at 5 o'clock. Well, bail is now set at $2 million for the 17-year-old accused of killing 2 men and hurting a third at a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kyle Rittenhouse is charged with shooting the men at a march in response to the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Video shows Rittenhouse walking past police cars with an assault-style weapon over his shoulder and his hands in the air. No one appears to stop him, even though protesters were screaming that he had shot people. The American Academy of Pediatrics announced that the number of kids getting COVID-19 has soared to what they're calling unprecedented levels. Nearly 200,000 new cases were reported in kids in October, and just 1 week late last month, 61,000 new cases were reported in kids, more than any other week during the pandemic.
Well, I tell you what, weather-wise across the Triad, we've got a gorgeous day to go cast your votes. All of this beautiful Carolina blue sky. You can see that live over Wake Forest right now, and really all across the entire country. It's a nice day of weather with just a few exceptions. Temperature-wise, quite comfortable. We're all sitting in the lower and mid-60s across the board, and you're going to have that nice weather for the rest of the evening if you're heading out to the polls. Once the sun starts to go down about 5:30, it will be cooling off into the 50s, though. Tonight, not quite as cold as we have been the last couple nights, but we will be back in the 30s, mid-30s for those overnight lows. Your Wednesday ends up being another nice day of weather. A lot of sunshine, temperatures in the mid-60s. Now, we might have a nice day of election weather here in the States, but there's a huge human disaster going on with Hurricane Eta in Central America. We'll take a look at that in your 7-day forecast coming up.
You know, it really doesn't matter how many times we hear about it. Remembering and also understanding how a president can win the popular vote but still not win the office, it confuses a lot of people during our election year. So recently, I spoke with Dean Daniel Prosterman. He's the Dean of College at Salem College. He's kind of an expert on this, and he explained it for us. Here's part of that conversation. All right, Daniel, as promised, we will start with hard news first. So let's talk about this, the Electoral College. Most people, I don't care how many times we explain it, we forget it. What is it and how does it work?
We do not follow a straight Democratic vote for the White House. Instead, what we are essentially doing as voters is we elect electors who then meet after Election Day. They come together and then they vote for who our president will be.
Can you talk just for a second about the electors themselves and how they get to their position?
The electors are chosen usually at the local and state level, oftentimes by the political parties themselves. They are selected in order to best reflect the vote of the people of that particular state. But certain states still permit what's called faithless electors, in which the electors could go ahead and vote for whomever they please. So even in 2016, the final Electoral College vote did not match the initial recording for the vote. There were 3 electors who voted for Colin Powell.
Would there ever be a time that we would change this, or is it too politically motivated?
Well, there has been a big movement in favor of changing the Electoral College system, especially when we've had a few elections in the past, say, 20 years, as you well know, in which case the popular vote has not decided the Electoral College winner. So as the case with Al Gore in the year 2000, with Hillary Clinton in 2016, there's been an increasing movement of support behind simply allowing the person who receives the highest number of votes nationally to be awarded the presidency. The argument in favor of the Electoral College is pretty much the same now as it was at the time of the founding of the country. Which is that the Electoral College enables smaller, less populated states to have a voice in the system. So no matter how small your state is, you are guaranteed Electoral College votes at least equivalent to the number of representatives you have in Congress. So all states have 2 senators and at least 1 member in the House of Representatives. So that means each state is guaranteed 3 votes in the Electoral College, no matter how small they are.
All right, so with all this election stress that everybody's under these days, it seems like I wanted to get something a little bit more positive. So I asked folks on Facebook, all the election issues aside, what is America's greatest asset? And you guys sounded off, and I will tell you, I have never in the history of this show had as many people as quickly responding to this. Let's start out with Anne Marie. She said the people's ability to choose freely how we wish to live our lives. J. Lee Thompson said it in one word: freedom. Our greatest asset. Mike Mezzi says it's the people. And Michelle said people first, freedom second, love third. Gloria Gleason said our belief in God and our Constitution. And I think Ashley Cakes Nicole had a little bit of fun with this. She said high-speed internet. So at least we still have our sense of humor with all of this. And coming up, just high-speed internet, I wouldn't argue that's a good asset. I don't know if it's the greatest. But I will say my 2 cents coming up at the end of the show, I talk a little bit about this and something I've come to realize over the last couple of days.
Yeah, Eric, I think here on Election Day, I have to say America's greatest asset is democracy. The fact that we get to choose our leaders, I think, is very important and something we shouldn't forget, especially as millions of people are casting their ballots.
Yeah,
I
and I
agree
think that
completely.
is something that we may take for granted, just to get out and vote. I mean, there are some countries that don't even get that opportunity. So if you haven't already, you have until 7:30. It's 4:17.
That's right.
Go out there and get it done.
Yes, you have to be in line by 7:30. Hey, if you have any more questions about voting today, we are chatting with you on the 4 to 5 live stream. You can find that on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page.
All right, we are watching a number of races this election day that will impact your everyday life. One to keep on the radar is the race for Congressional District 6. On the ballot are Democratic nominee Kathy Manning and Republican candidate Lee Haywood. This race is important because it will determine whether the GOP will maintain the majority in the North Carolina General Assembly. Incumbent Republican Mark Walker has served as congressman in District 6 since 2015, but he announced late last year that he would not run after district lines were changed. The old 6th district divided 3 Democratic areas among different districts: Winston-Salem, High Point, and Greensboro. Now, all those cities are in the same district. Both candidates were out earlier today at polling places across the Triad talking with voters, both telling News 2 they are the best person for the job. Kathy Manning says if elected, she will work to get the pandemic under control and get people back to work and kids to school.
Once we do that, I want to get up there and fight for affordable, accessible health care and prescription drugs for everyone. We've got to make sure we're providing our kids with the best possible education no matter where they live.
Lee Haywood says his values align with voters in the Triad. Like Manning, he too wants to see kids get back to school, among other issues.
Personal protection, personal safety is number one. I would say the debt is number two. Immigration is, in there, but judicial activism, school choice. I want to make sure these schools are opened up for people of all economic strata.
Eric and Maddie, I do want to add that District 6, as it is drawn right now, will actually be reevaluated after the 2020 census is complete, because you remember the word gerrymandering. We said that word a lot. It took a while for us to get to where we are in terms of District 6 as it is today.
Right, and this is a newly drawn district for this election as well. So a lot of changing happening among North Carolina's districts right now, but this will be a race to watch tonight. Taheshah, thanks for that preview.
Well, and I think that the way they've redrawn that too, with putting that's going to be a major district in central North Carolina when it comes to population and the amount of people it affects. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep it that uniform with the 3 largest cities in that one thing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are having a conversation about voting on our live stream. You can find that on WFMY News 2's Facebook page. Did you vote today? Did you get time off to vote? Join our conversation there.
Hey, can you take me out of this chat? They've got me doing a live shot at 6 and I'm trying to set stuff up and I'm using my cell phone for TVU. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back to your 4 to 5. Millions of people have already voted in this year's election, but still a lot prefer to go on the polls on Election Day. It is a tradition for many people, despite it not being a day off of work. Our sister station in Atlanta takes a look at why one of the most important days for our country isn't a federal holiday.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is among the people who don't see it as necessary.
Just what America needs, another paid holiday.
There are arguments that another holiday with fewer people working would be costly to the economy. Others point out that the Founding Fathers didn't see the need for a holiday. Emory political science professor Andra Gillespie says tradition is part of the American political process.
There are some people who resist making changes to the election system in terms of making it easier to vote. Tradition is tradition, and sort of like once you start a habit, it's actually a really hard habit to break.
Several states have turned Election Day into a state holiday. Others, like Georgia, have early voting and absentee voting to help with busy schedules. Congress now has the latest proposal to create a federal holiday. It passed the House last year, but there's been no action on it since then.
And I know many companies, especially this year, Taheshah, have given their employees a couple of hours off or maybe even the entire day off so they can get out and vote.
Yes, baby steps, but I know some people won't be happy until it comes down at the federal level. Now, as journalists, of course, we are now taking this day off. We've prepped for this all year, for the last couple of years. Some refer to it as the Super Bowl for journalists.
And I do have to commend our state for having early voting, for having absentee ballots available, and also for keeping those polling sites open way before work starts for some people in the morning. 6:30 is when they open, and then they close tonight at 7:30. You just have to be in line by then. So they do try to work with people so they can work and vote. Hey, more of the 4 to 5 is coming up right after this. Stick around and join our conversation. Just use our hashtag 4 to 5.
Gotcha. A. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. I will stand at A at the top of the 430. A.
Hey, mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maddie's mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Hey, ice cold milk and an Oreo cookie, they forever go together.
Hey there, mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I'm gonna break into my snack pack.
Mic check. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Precinct here at Buford Academy have been given 34. Voters here at this precinct, Buford Academy, have been given 34 minutes to get in line and their ballots cast. It says. Okay, mic check now. We're trying again. Precinct here at Buford Academy has been.
The director of the Board of Election.
Good afternoon and welcome back to your 4 to 5. I'm Maddie Gardner, joined by Taheshah Moise and Eric Chilton from home. Christian Morgan in the studio on this very special election day.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get to, but you know, this show is built to connect you with the community and with us. So be sure to join our conversation as we stream this show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
And as always, use that hashtag 4 to 5 to stay connected with us.
Well, we want to jump right into the biggest story of the day. It is Election Day across the country. Voters continue to head to the polls to cast their ballots, and we will be bringing you the latest election news all across the Triad tonight. We have crews covering all of the key races in our state, as well as the latest information coming from polling sites. We have crews in Guilford, Forsyth, Alamance, and Rockingham County as those polling sites tally up the final votes. But some of those polling places have already seen a few delays today. The State Board of Elections is now extending voting hours at 4 different places, including Blueford Academy and Greensboro, because of a late start this morning. Now, because of that extension, results will not be posted by the State Board of Elections until 8:15 tonight. One of those locations with extending voting hours is right here in Guilford County. We want to get out to WFMY News 2's Aduri Achumba. She is at Blueford Academy. Aduri, tell us what happened at that precinct this morning.
That's right. This precinct here at Blueford Academy, voters have about 34 minutes to get in line and cast their ballots. Now, election officials say that the chief judge arrived late to the precinct around 6:25 this morning, and the polling opening process caused about a half-hour delay before the first ballot could be cast here. Now, there was also some last-minute changes for 7 precincts due to COVID-19 concerns. Now, we also went to several other voting precincts, and there weren't many long lines that you would normally find on an election day like this one. Guilford County officials say more than 190,000 people already voted during early voting, and more than 45,000 cast their ballots through mail-in process.
I just want to encourage everyone, if you have not gotten out to vote, to please come out and vote. You know, a lot of people think that their vote doesn't count, but at this point, it will, of course.
And you still have about 3 more hours to vote at your designated precinct. Now, remember, those places close at 7:30. Now, this location here at Blueford Academy will stay open till 8:04 p.m. Now, keep in mind, no results will be released until the very last polling center in the state closes, and that's in Sampson County at 8:15.
Adori, thank you. Voting continues over in Forsyth County. WFMY News 2's Marissa Tansino joins us live from a polling site in Kernersville. Marissa, what's it like there?
Yeah, Taheshah, well, we're standing here at the polling location off Old Winston Road in Kernersville, and we've seen a couple people kind of trickle in and out here. No line at this polling location as of right now, but when I spoke with the Board of Elections earlier, the director said that they did have a morning rush that they went through, so we are expecting more people to come out here as the night goes on. Now, they did have a few cases in Forsyth County where they had some printers jam. They dealt with those issues, but other than that, really not too many problems in Forsyth County at the polls today. The director of the Board of Elections did tell me that more than half of their registered voters voted either absentee or during the early in-person voting period. So they're expecting that leaves more of about 105,000 registered voters that may or may not come out tonight. We did speak with the director of the Board of Elections about what process will take place after the polls close at 7:30. Take a listen.
They will tabulate the votes off of the voting machines where they close the polls on the devices, and they will print out the results tapes. They'll have their assistants break down the rest of the polling place and pack everything up, and all the ballots will be boxed up into the ballot boxes and sealed and secured.
Now, at that point, everything will be returned to the Board of Elections, and then they will update the numbers as they come in on a rolling basis. So again, we are expecting another rush here for the afternoon when people get out of work. So we'll keep eyes on things over here, and we'll check back in with you in a bit.
You know, the Rockingham County Board of Elections, they have faced a lot of challenges leading up to Election Day, but the board chair said that voters now have nothing to worry about. WFMY News 2's Itanese Miller is live at one of the county's 15 precincts with more on how this day is going. Itanese?
Well, I'm here in Eden at the Osborne Baptist Church polling site. This was expected to be one of the busier polling locations in Rockingham County, but there's been no line. There actually hasn't been a line all afternoon. It's much smoother than early voting. Actually, during early voting, a one-stop site was shut down because several poll workers tested positive for coronavirus. And one of the county's board members resigned Sunday. Despite those challenges, the board says all 15 of their polling sites are open. I spoke with folks who came out to cast their ballot today.
Well, it was a pleasant surprise to just come right in and, give them most of my name and get a ballot and go right on around and right into a little old box.
Well, I voted before, and this is the place I always vote at, so I feel good.
About 60% of registered voters in Rockingham County voted during early voting. At this polling site in Eden, about 400 have cast their ballots so far. Polling staff say that's much less than they typically see. And if you don't know where your polling site is, the State Board of Elections has a polling search website. And as long as you're in line by 7:30, you will be able to vote today. Live in Rockingham County, Itanese McMiller, WFMY News 2.
In the final hours of the 2020 election, President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are making their final push to rally their supporters. President Trump visited the Republican National Committee headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, to thank the staffers who helped run his re-election campaign. Former Vice President Biden spent the morning in Scranton, Pennsylvania, to visit his childhood home with his two granddaughters. It's unclear if a winner will be declared tonight, as some states could take days to count all their ballots.
Let's take a look now at your 4 to 5 roundup. Across the country, law enforcement is preparing for possible civil unrest over the election. Business owners are boarding up their windows in Raleigh, LA, and Denver. Officials say they are not aware of any specific threats, but after a year of high tension over the coronavirus, police brutality, and racial injustice, they are getting ready for possible trouble. Federal officials will monitor tonight's developments from a command center at FBI headquarters. An independent report found that 5 states are especially at risk for civilian militia activity this week. People across the world are watching election results in the United States. President Donald Trump has a sky-high approval rating in Israel, with supporters hoping he gets 4 more years. In Nigeria, hundreds are marching to support him, and in Russia, many fear a Joe Biden presidency. Support for the candidates really depends on the country and who people think will be best for their own national interest. In the UK, most believe Biden should be America's next president. In France and Germany, President Trump also remains deeply unpopular. Whoever wins, the result will impact not just the U.S., but the world. And a dangerous and powerful Hurricane Eta is churning toward Nicaragua's coast. The outer bands are already causing problems in Central America. The Category 4 storm has sustained winds of 145 miles per hour. In Miami, the National Hurricane Center called Eta extremely dangerous.
Yeah, Maddie, I'll tell you what, we've got nice weather here, but that really is a major, devastating disaster in Central America. We have nice weather here wherever you're casting your ballot today, really all across the entire country, with dry weather, great weather for Election Day. Tonight, clear skies dropping down into the mid-30s again, and your Wednesday will be another gorgeous day with sunshine and temperatures in the 60s. This is a look at Eta. Now with 140-mile-per-hour winds, it is still a Category 4 storm, and it is expected to remain a hurricane until tomorrow as it tracks across Central America. But then, in very 2020 fashion, it will eventually turn back out to sea. It could possibly become a tropical storm again over the Caribbean, and then we'll have to watch it as it goes from there. It could bring us some rain by late next week. No guarantees on that yet, but we will be watching it.
This right here is when it looks official, right? And often feels official. When a candidate stands in front of their supporters and says, hey, I won.
Right, and we could see that tonight. We may have to wait for a few days to see that. Who really knows?
We don't know, it's true. But even when a candidate says, hey, I won, and it's accepted that the candidate won, I gotta tell you, it's not really official. You see, Election Day, is today, right? Tomorrow begins what is called the canvass period. It runs 10 days. It begins November 4th, ends Friday, November 13th. That's right, Friday the 13th is the official day for counties to make the results official. The state board then meets November 24th to go over all the findings and then makes all the results official for the state. Now, I mentioned that canvass period is 10 days long. Coming up at 5 o'clock, we're looking at what they do in those 10 days and how they figure out if ballots have been tampered with or not. There are a whole lot of details when it comes to the election. There's a whole lot of emotions too. We are talking with experts about how to deal with what's been happening, what could happen in the next 24 hours, in the next week, in the next month. Election stress coping questions. 336-379-5775. We have experts on hand.
You know, some folks are saying this could be the most important election of their lifetime, and all eyes, of course, on the presidential race tonight. We know the race to president usually comes down to, it seems like always, a handful of swing states, but this year there are a few more states that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at some of the crucial battleground states for this year.
Welcome to Battleground, Arizona. State 48 used to be a sure bet for Republicans, but times have changed. We've seen Arizona turn purple as more and more people have moved here from across the country. Now, President Trump won Arizona 4 years ago, but so far in this election, Joe Biden has had a slight lead in most polls. Still, the race remains very close heading into Election Day, and both campaigns have been out in full force, looking to win our 11 electoral votes.
Hi from Tampa. The Sunshine State is the ultimate swing state with votes almost always split right down the middle. There are a little more than 5 million registered Democrats, 5 million registered Republicans, and some 3.5 million independents who could ultimately decide who will walk away with the state's crucial 29 electoral votes. And get this,
In the past 6 presidential elections, only Florida and Ohio have gone for the eventual winner every time, making this arguably the most important state in U.S. presidential elections.
Greetings from Atlanta, where the latest polls are showing Biden and Trump in a statistical dead heat. The race here can go either way. To give you some history, Republican presidential candidates have won Georgia in every election since 1992. Bill Clinton was the last Democrat to win here. In the 2016 election, Trump won Georgia's 16 electoral college votes by 5.7 percentage points. But that was then, and this is now, where there's been a huge shift away from the president, specifically in Atlanta's suburbs, changing politics and demographics, meaning Georgia could flip blue.
Hello from Minnesota, aka the Bold North. This year we are a bold battleground state. 10 electoral votes may not seem like a lot, but this year they carry a lot of weight. You think Minnesota, you think of snow, and you think Democrats. That's because our state has voted Democrat every year since 1976. But our political climate is as wild as our weather. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won by only 1.5 percentage points. And this time around, Republicans are pushing hard to flip the state. But they'll need to push harder as Biden is gaining in the polls.
Make no mistake about it, folks. Both Trump and Biden have Carolina on their mind, specifically North Carolina, where our 15 electoral votes can go either way. College sports fans think of us as Tar Heel blue, but politically, at least, we're pretty purple. At the presidential level, North Carolina has voted reliably red for decades now. But in 2008, Barack Obama took the state, and since then, we have been a key battleground. Some experts even calling us the bluest red state in the country.
Here in Ohio, we are not known simply as a swing state. We are the must-win state. No Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio. Ohio is like 7 states in one. Each part of the Buckeye State is so different. That's one reason that we can flip and flop each election year. We have 18 electoral votes up for grabs, and it's anyone's game.
Howdy from Dallas. The big question, will Texas go blue? If it does, that would be huge. This state has been solidly Republican for decades. We're talking bright red. No one would ever think of Texas as a swing state until now. Some polls say Texas is a toss-up, and if Biden flips the state, taking home 38 electoral votes, it would be a huge blow to President Trump.
Well, it seems like we're always, North Carolina, really in the last probably 4 or 5 elections, I think, at least in my lifetime, it seems like we are more and more important, more so than ever before. So it's kind of good to be in that position, but it's also a lot of pressure for our voters.
Right, and you think about this, we are such a swing state that in 2016, we voted for President Trump as a state, but we also voted for a Democratic governor. So you can see the split between that and how it really is a toss-up, and we'll see what happens tonight.
Right. I know a lot of people, not just us here in North Carolina, but the presidents, the candidates clearly looking at us. Think about the amount of times that President Donald Trump came to North Carolina. Just last month, more than 10 times, and the Biden camp here. So clearly North Carolina is on their radar, and a lot of people will be looking towards those results.
All right, the 4 to 5 is heading to break, but we have more coming up after this. More on the 2020 election and what to look out for. We'll be right back.
This has been a stressful election season, right? And it's not over yet. Almost there. I know you know that I like talking about mental health. I always want to make sure that's top of mind. So I asked you on my Facebook page today, what are you doing in terms of self-care after this election cycle? So let's take a look at some of our comments today. Cheryl Martin says, I don't think we will have results for possibly weeks as they'll demand recounts, etc. Tonight, I'm debating shutting off my phone and snuggling Gabe with some Disney movies, maybe. Sounds like a great plan, Cheryl. Rashonda Smith says, I plan to stay away from anything to do with the election and find a spa to heal me of all this stress. I will also be putting up my Christmas tree and decorations. More power to you, Rashonda. Kenwood says, I'm going to stay away from the opinionated news for a few days, run, work out, and relax. And Sharon says, well, for election night, I think it may be long. We are doing nachos. But beyond that, I think taking time to enjoy the moments, read, cook, fellowship, laugh. Each day is a beautiful day. So everyone choosing to do something. Sometimes my form of self-care is retail therapy. So I have some things in my cart online that I'm ready to press by now.
I'm wondering if Sharon can bring some nachos to where I will be this election night. No, I think it is definitely important to check in with yourself and see how you're feeling and explore those avenues to maybe relieve some of that stress and anxiety tonight.
Yeah, you know, the other thing too is to check on, I would say check on our relatives and the elderly. You know, sometimes they're a little bit more isolated, especially during COVID and that type of thing when they don't feel like it's really safe to go anywhere. So check on them and make sure they have a friend that can listen to them and talk to them a little bit about after all this.
All right. Well, we are heading to break, but more of WFMY News 2 is coming up after this, including Eric Chilton's 2 cents.
I was just like, Callie sounds like she had some coffee. Hello, mic check 1, 2, 3.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Everything sound good? We're on down.
Hey, Callie, your scream is still quieter than the other person.
I thought they were going to get mic checks.
Yeah, so did I.
Hello, I was just asking, where's...
I'm here, 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear me? My mic is on.
So here it is. This is the day, Election Day. A lot of you have been waiting minute by minute for this day. Some people dreading this day. Tomorrow, or whenever we get a final word, some will be disappointed, some will be elated. But I give you this. Last night, I was in line at a restaurant, and the gentleman behind me struck up a conversation. We talked about my job and TV news and that type of thing, and gradually the conversation went to the election. And it was funny. We talked about how passionate people are for one side or the other. They love or they hate Trump. They love or they hate Biden. And it's building to a fever pitch. The stress is incredible. And as he and I kind of talked it out, it was almost like we were exercising out and sifting through all the mess. And when you get down to the bottom of your sifter, what you're left with, at least in both of our opinions, were people. I believe in people in the United States. I believe in us. I think for every bad person there is out there, there's 10 or 20 good ones in the United States. And the bottom line is, we should take care of each other. Whether you believe for this candidate or that candidate, and whether your candidate wins or loses, the bottom line is, we should still take care of each other and treat each other correctly. If you do that, the country's in great hands. I've always said America's greatest asset are the people, and I still believe that. So really, it's not so much who you voted for or who wins the election, it's how we act that determines our fate as a country. And I think we have some pretty good people here. That's just my 2 cents, and that's your 4 to 5. WFMY News 2 at 5 starts now.
North Carolina elections results delayed 45 minutes after issues at several polling locations, including one in Guilford County.
Meantime, voters march again in Graham 3 days after a clash between protesters and officers.